And post. There we go. All right. So, hello and welcome, guys. Welcome. I'm glad that everyone that can be here is here. I'm sure that we're going to have more people that will jump on. Look at that. 13 minutes trying to figure out tech issues, right?
Right.
But it's all good. It is all
Yes,
good.
it is. It
It's
is.
definitely all
It sure
good.
is.
In light, in light of everything that's taking place in our world today, it is crazy. It is crazy, crazy, crazy. But Therese and I, we had the opportunity, and I'm hoping that many of you had a chance to watch our mentor and our leader, Dr. John Maxwell, share his thoughts on leading through crisis. We're in some really crazy times, right, Therese?
Yeah.
It's really
Say
crazy.
that again. Yeah, it's been wow.
Yeah. I've been with the John Maxwell team. I'm an executive director with the John Maxwell team. I've been with the John Maxwell team since 2016. Therese, you've been with JMT since
2016. Yeah.
2016, so the same amount of time. And our backgrounds are different. We're both business owners. We've both worked I work in the corporate arena. Therese, if you want to go ahead and just share a little bit about yourself.
So I've worked with, I was in education for 17 years. I worked in middle and high schools. I was an assistant principal for a while in leadership. When I left education, I was an assistant principal getting ready to go into principalship. So I taught US history, so I moved up in leadership in education for a while. I'm a single parent. My son is 23 years old now. I was a single mom for most of that time. And so but the world has changed. But they say the more things change, the more they stay the same, it seems.
Isn't it crazy? Like as John was talking about all of the different like major crises that we've experienced.
Yes.
Like I was going through my notes and see if I can grab them here, going through my notes and like talking about all like the Zika virus. I remember that coming. I remember, when you talked about Y2K and how we thought the world was going to end when it hit year 2000.
Right.
He talked about the swine flu. And when the swine flu came through in 2009, just all of the different epidemics or, that we've experienced, all these different crises that we've experienced. And as a matter of fact, 2009, when the swine flu came through, I was pregnant with my daughter, who's now 10, and I got the swine flu.
Really?
I was in the hospital under quarantine for a week. I was 8 months pregnant, and I got the swine flu.
My word.
And I was the 8th case in the county that I live in.
Wow.
Of pregnant women that had gotten the swine flu. And so when he was talking about, it's minor when it happens to someone else, but it's major when it happens to me.
Yes.
I was just like, oh yeah. Because, you hear and you see all the stuff that's being communicated out loud and, on the news. And now, social media is even bigger than it was back then. So it's like a constant barrage of information that we're getting. And so the whole purpose of us wanting to have this roundtable is to get your thoughts, to get your feedback on where we are. So, Therese, if I could ask you, what's been the biggest lesson? What was the biggest lesson that you learned from listening to John today?
The biggest lesson that I learned from John today, that listening to John today, it's what I've always felt about being a leader and being in a position of leadership. You cannot be a good leader without putting people at the top of the list. Period. And as he came out of the first, that was his first bullet point. That putting people first is very important. And I think in any capacity, that in leadership, you just have to do that. And it may sound cliche. It may sound, there are a lot of leaders that may think it, whether that's corporate, whether that's, in that corporate busy space, the Wall Streets of the world, in whatever space that is. And in the space that I was in, being an assistant principal, and in that environment, sometimes it tended to be less about what was in the best interest of students sometimes, and more about what was in the best interest of people trying to get into positions.
Mm.
And sometimes decisions were not always made in the best interest of the people.
Mm-hmm.
And when I heard him say that was, that's key in leadership, putting people first, it just confirmed for me, it just confirmed for me what I felt in my spirit, is that, and I used to always tell myself, I'm not built for what, for some of the things that I would see people do.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sometimes would think that they would, some leaders would always try to put people last, whether that was the students or the teachers or other staff members, the custodial staff, down to the person who was the secretary greeting the people at the door. If you don't put your people first, when crisis happen, you can't wait till the crisis happened to put your people first.
Right.
That was the biggest lesson. It was just confirmation for me today. It should never take a crisis for us to think about people.
When he said crisis will, when crisis hits, who you are will show up. Like what's inside of you will show up when the crisis hits.
Yes.
And that there's so many things that resonated. Hey, Cassandra. Hey, Kiana. Hello, ladies. Thanks for joining us tonight. If you had a chance to listen to John speak today, what was one of the biggest takeaways that you had?
I'm sorry, I tried, but I could not get my volume to work, so I haven't been able to listen to it yet.
Okay.
I'm just going to listen in to you guys.
Awesome. Awesome. How about you, Kiana? I'm glad you're here, Cassandra.
Thank you.
Kiana,
I like to learn.
Awesome. Kiana, did you get a chance to listen in?
No, she said she didn't either. She just wrote a chat in the chat.
She didn't either. Well, and I see someone on here, Psych 59. I don't know who you are. I would love for you to just introduce yourself. That'd be really great. We try to build community around here, so it would be nice to know who you are. One of the main teaching point, the first teaching point that John shared was that crisis is common. Crisis is common. It's not anything that hasn't happened, and it's not anything that will not happen again. And so again, when major crisis happens and it's happening to me, that's when we're just like, oh my gosh, it's more impactful. But when it's happening outside of me, it's happening outside of any type of impact or, change to my life or to what I'm doing, it's not so big.
Mm-hmm.
He talked about during crisis, bad leadership, what's in you will come out of you. So bad leaders fall faster. Good leaders, they offer perseverance. They offer, steadfastness. They create hope. They give encouragement. They define reality. Like they don't ignore what's happening. If we ignore what's happening today, we can sound very tone deaf.
Yeah.
And especially in the space that we're in, when it comes to, we're in personal development space, it's easy to get into that whole motivation piece and trying to keep people hyped up.
Mm-hmm.
Fear is running, I think, and he shared this earlier, fear is running more viral than the virus itself.
Right.
Wow, that's a good one. I like that.
It's running more viral than the virus itself. So one of the questions that I want to ask in regards to that perspective, like, what is one thing that you and I can do in order to keep crisis in the right perspective? What can we do in order to keep crisis in the right perspective? I'm gonna start acting like a teacher. I'm gonna call on y'all.
I'm trying to think it through in the sense of, there's the spiritual side of me, and then there's the leadership side of me as well. And so I'm trying to think of what perspective I kind of want to come from. So you're saying, what do we do? That's a good one.
Okay, let me ask the question this way. How many of you have spent a lot of time watching the news?
I've chosen not to, so that may be one of my ways.
Praise the Lord.
Okay.
It's too much for me. It's way too much for me.
It's a lot. How many of you have spent time going through social media and seeing information about what's going on?
Not
Yeah,
too much.
I would say yes.
Okay. How much time has that taken to do that? And ask, and why? Why has it taken that much time?
Well, for me, one of the things that I really appreciate, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. One of the things that you had brought up, I was trying to hurry up and take notes. I was walking upstairs, but what John was saying about the difference between good leaders and bad leaders, and how good leaders respond in the midst of a crisis, where you're present in the moment, you're offering a specific type of not necessarily comfort, but reassurance, and that you're present as a leader, and that you're not gonna I didn't really get to fully hear what you said, but that you're not gonna run away, or that you're not gonna just where there's a gap, I guess, in the process of you providing whatever, communication or direction or instruction that you need to provide to whatever team that you're leading, whether it be, in ministry or in Fortune 500 company or whatever. So I was really trying to hear that, because I really appreciated that reminder as a leader in any one place, because you can kind of just like, okay, well, this is happening, so you can kind of let it maybe die down a little bit, or not provide as much instruction when that really should not be the case. So I didn't really get to hear you, but I appreciated that perspective. So that's kind of where I'm learning from what you just stated about what John had brought up about what good leaders do in the midst of crises.
That's good. Thank you for sharing that. I'll share one of the things that he shared. The reason I asked about, how much are you consuming, is because he made a point of saying that crisis is distracting.
Yes.
Crisis is very distracting. And when we're distracted, we're pulled away from the things that are most important.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that we need to do, is identify, he talked about defining reality. So identify where the distractions are coming from. How much time are we spending, here?
Right.
Yeah.
How much time are we spending watching? How much time are we spending talking about things that are not that we're being tone deaf, but talking about the things that are focused on the negative mindset of what can happen. Not that it is happening to us,
right?
But what can happen. He talked about, the question that he asked was, am I manipulating or motivating people? So if a leader's role is to define reality, being very, very clear on why you're doing what you're doing and the agenda behind it. Do I want to uplift them and help them to gain traction and momentum to keep the positive movement flowing, knowing that this thing will come to an end? It will come to an end. Or am I trying to manipulate them?
Yeah.
One of the things that our mentor, Sharice, go ahead and,
I think the one thing that stood out about that one was when he was talking about the news and the media. He he actually said that he thinks that we need to fast a little bit from the news. He used the
Yeah.
word fast, and he said that, because the news has an agenda, it's not always accurate. And he said that if you're manipulating people, it's wrong, period, and it's always wrong. There's never in between about that. It's just wrong. And he says the results of distraction is it's mind wandering. It brings on, the results are anxiety. It dominates you, and it creates all this fear. And like I think that, Desiree said it earlier, it's that the fear it's dominating our space right now, rather than the virus itself.
Yeah.
And it's becoming, it's like, it's so rampant that the fear itself is becoming more of an issue rather than the actual, the actual virus itself. And I think that, I think the thing when he was talking about the traction is that the traction is something that's supposed to pull you forward, draw you toward the things that are more important to you, that you really want for your life, the things that are positive, that are going to help you be better, to pull you forward, that the things that are going to make you be more, become better while you're in this place in your life, this crisis. Because distraction is distraction is distraction. This is no much, he didn't say, he's like, yes, this is a reality we're in. It's no much more, it's something that we've all, he said one of the things that that really stood out for me was when he said that people are constantly saying, oh, we've never seen this before. I've never this before. This has never happened before. But the point he was trying to make today was we've had different types of crises in our lives or in the country before. There has been other things, and we have gone through them because that's just part of life and it's part of our experiences. But if we spend so much time focusing on this rather than trying to think about, being in a place of traction, the thing that's going to pull us forward, the positives, not ignoring our reality, but not sitting in a place of fear and allowing the fear to dominate our thought process. Every aspect of our life, we're not going to be able to move forward, because then we start wandering in our minds like the whole world's against me, and then we're in this place of anxiety, and you create exactly what it is you don't want in your space because you're thinking it all the time.
You know what? And that makes me think. When I went, when everything first started happening, and I went shopping. When I went shopping, part of it was, okay, this is something that I need to do.
Yeah.
But a lot of it was, okay, well, if I don't, I'm going to be without.
Right.
So it's been kind of crazy because my kids, my daughter has been like, dang, we got a lot of stuff in the house. We got a lot of stuff in the house. This is great. And all the snacks, you're trying to, go through all the snacks, within the first couple of days.
Yeah.
But how much of my going out there and doing stuff was unspoken fear.
Right. That's very true.
Unspoken anxiety. Another thing that he said was, nothing causes more anxiety than trying to control something I can't control.
Yep.
Reaching out in anxiety and worry exacerbates anxiety and worry. So when it comes to perspective, okay, we know that it's here. We know that there are things that we can do in order to keep ourselves healthy and safe. Well, what about up here?
Yeah.
What about with the people that we interact with day in and day out? How do we, what's one thing that we can do to keep our perspective in the right, this whole thing in the right perspective, knowing that it's not the first, nor will it be the last.
No.
But what can we do? What can we do? Kiana, what's one thing that you can do?
For me, what I've been doing is honestly just committing to waking up with a certain mindset, which is really being in the Word and just being reminded that there's always something for me to do, you know, either calling family or just, I've been kind of like affirmations, which I haven't been consistent in. I'm really just starting that again. um, you know, so just getting back into the things that I used to do when I woke up very early, but really just being in the Word of prayer and just, you know, affirmations and just looking at the promises of God, and also too not thinking about myself, like really just checking on people and just really thinking outside of what I'm going through.
I like it. That's good. Cassandra, how about you?
I was kind of going along those lines. I talked about this in one of our other little Zoom meetings we had the other day about reducing and trying to eliminate the noise in my mind and in my life. And sometimes we get so wrapped up in this thing going around and the virus. And every time you turn on the news, there's something about the virus, and more people have died, and it's spreading. You know, half of people are, you know, half of California is getting all these different things. And whether I listen to that or not, it doesn't really matter. Those facts are going to be whatever they're going to be. But when I put that stuff in my mind constantly, it shifts my atmosphere. It shifts my mind thought. It shifts how I am as a mom here in my home. And I'm realizing too, my kids are watching me through this crisis. They're watching how I'm going to handle this. Am I going to break? Am I going to let this consume me? You know, and so for me, it's reducing the negativity. The virus is here. We get it. We're staying home. We're doing what we need to do. We're washing our hands. But I don't need to hear it all day, because sometimes it puts a fear in me. And that fear is sometimes given off to my kids. And I definitely don't do that. Desiree, you know my son, and he's my one that gets fearful almost of everything. And so when he sees mom scared, it scares him. And so for me, I'm just trying to one of the steps I am taking is, like the lady said, I'm sorry I didn't get your name, but is prayer and the Word. But also when we're in crisis, I think sometimes, or when we think things are bad, we kind of forget that God, and for me, still he still wants me to minister. He still wants me to do the things that he's called me to do. So part of my dealing with this is getting rid of all the stuff, taking away all the noise, but also continuing in my leadership with my staff, continuing in ministering to people, continuing in, I like to give and bake for people. That's the things I like to do. And sometimes we forget those things, but those are the things that help us stay grounded, is to continue to do the things that we know God has called us to be. And so that, I think now, after listening to you guys, thank you guys, because I was just kind of processing your question, Desiree, but that's kind of where I am. I'm going to continue doing what God has called me to do. Exactly. And that's it. And I'm going to reduce the noise that's out there. So that's my thoughts.
You know, one of the things that you said, Cassandra, that I want to pull on a little bit earlier. You said, you know, there's a spiritual side of me, and then there's like the practical side of me, right?
I kind of thought about that after I said that.
You know, but it's all you, right?
Yeah,
so
it is all me. Absolutely.
You think about, okay, you know what? As a leader, I am responsible for people on the job, and so I need to show up a certain way. I need to show up a certain way. And for the longest time, it would be, okay, well, I'm going to show up a certain way. And whoever Desiree is gets kind of like, okay, let me set her back here because I need to show up a certain way. When one of the things that John said today that I love it so much. And I want to make sure that I want to read it so that it is very, very clear. Where did I put it? Hold on. Because we are all learning. Hang on. He said, show me your scars. Show me your scars. When we deal with loss, Loss is wisdom acquired early. Wisdom comes from dealing with your mess, and people will, they will respect your leadership when you are willing to say, hey, you know what, I showed up. This is what I'm dealing with, but we have something that we're working towards. There's somewhere that we're going here. So we're not going to get stuck in the fear of where we are. Yes, I do have some fears. I am concerned. I am uncertain, but that uncertainty is not going to, it's not going to guide every single decision that I make.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
You know, where do you find your strength from? For those of us that are, believers, that's one thing. For those that have other beliefs, it might be something different, but everybody believes something.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has a belief in something. And so when we show up as the person that can influence and impact other people, people are depending on us to be authentic.
That's true.
They're depending
That's
on us
true.
to be okay with showing our scars and letting them know, yeah, this is where I am as well. You're not alone, but we are moving forward together and providing
That piece of
Go ahead.
that part of being vulnerable, as a leader,
Mhm.
and letting people know and understand that you're not perfect, and that your life has bumps and ups and downs like everyone else, to me is one of the most valuable pieces of leadership. Because at times I've had many leaders in my educational career, people who just want to act like everything is just great, and they never really show that. Sometimes we sorry, I just got distracted by my lovely child. Huh? You're gonna what place? No. Sorry. Okay, I lost my train of thought. But anyway, I closed my door for a reason. But anyway, the piece about being vulnerable and really just letting our as we lead, just letting people see the real us sometimes. And I just think that's really important part.
And I completely negated the fact, I don't know if you jumped on soon enough, Cassandra. Sharice is also a former educator.
Okay.
Yeah, she's a former vice principal.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
She said amen. Hallelujah, sister.
I know the former part, or amen that you're.
Hallelujah. Break for all of y'all out there that are free. This is for a few. Yes, girl. I don't know how y'all still doing it. People laugh.
So here's another question that I have. Let's see, how much time do we have? We've got 20 minutes or so.
Yeah.
What's one example of a person that you know in your life or from history that led well in a crisis? I'm going to take out the history part because it's easy to go there and not really think about things, right?
Yeah.
What's one person in your life that led well in crisis?
Many.
Wow. See now.
I would say for me, one of our former superintendents who still, to me, just is probably one of the best leaders I've had in education. I remember we were going through all the layoffs and education was just being laid off. And one thing I remember about him was, number one, he stayed calm. Number two, he stayed very encouraging through the whole process. And he made personal connections, especially with those that were already up for possibly losing their job. And he stayed very consistent with his message and what he wanted for us as a district. So I would say for him, that's one of the leaders that I always look back and admire, and how he got us through that. And we really never, in our district, really never lost any teachers. And it was just a blessing to see. So I really appreciated that at that time.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Kiana, you got anybody? Psych 5-9, do you have anyone that comes to mind for you?
My director at a former job, that I was working at, we worked with current and former foster youth, and it was a very hard time for me in that season. But what I respected, kind of like what Cassandra was saying, that she remained consistent in her character and just her being present. And that I respected, just because I knew that even though that we were going through a lot of transition and a lot of challenges, that we are dealing with kids who are also going through crises. And to have both staff and kids go through crisis, there's a certain type of leader that you need to continue to journey through and continue to make sure that there's a foundation, that things are still being done with the other third parties and entities that you work with. So I can honestly say that, I definitely respected that aspect and learned from the type of leader, some characteristics and some aspect of how I would want to lead when there is a crisis. So my director.
Mm-hmm. I can tell you, we had an experience back in 2012, and I was sharing this with Sharice earlier. We were going through, 2008, the whole financial crisis happened, and we were still reeling from that in 2012. And in 2012 on the job, we had an employee who had experienced, he was going through his own experiences, but he ended up coming to work with a sawed-off shotgun, and he killed 2 managers on the job. It was a murder-suicide, and he killed himself on the job as well. And there were 2 other people that were hurt. And I had been working from home that day, and I just happened to turn on the news, and I saw that our company was in the news. And like shortly after I turned on the TV, I got a call from my manager on my personal phone, and he was like, "Hey, I don't know if you've seen the news," former manager. "I don't know if you've seen the news. However, here's what's happened, and I wanted to call to check to see if you were okay." And so, kind of caught me up on what was going on. And during that time, we had gone through a reduction in force. There were about almost 4,000 people that had been let go at that time. So when a lot of organizations, when you reduce people, the people might reduce, but the work doesn't reduce. There's an expectation that more will be done with the remaining people that are there. So as a leader, you're going through this crisis. As an economy, we're going through a crisis. As an organization, they're making the best decisions that they can to make sure the organization stays viable. And now as a leader, you are now forced to make tough decisions on whether people are going to stay, whether people are going to go. And then if you don't have the capacity to put people first, you can only imagine what that environment was like. So of course the story always comes out, hindsight is always 2020. Story came out later about this person and who they were. Me being the inquisitive mind that I am, AKA nosy, I went to the funeral. And I wanted to see, like, who was this person that they were going to, because when you go to funerals, sometimes people are deified. They're put in this place of, oh my gosh, they were so wonderful, they were so great, they were so this, they were so that, because everyone will see them. It's emotions are really, really high during that time, right? So I'm sitting there listening, and every single person that talked about this man, every single one said, this wasn't him. This wasn't him.
Wow.
Fast forward a couple years, as the story continues to come out, you find out that poor leadership was a part of the problem. You find out that when someone is trying to communicate with you and you don't have the capacity to hear them, see them, or know them because they're so focused on getting the thing done, it affects people. The story comes out where you know, a person gets pushed to their breaking point because they're not seen, heard, or known. And the thing that I appreciate so much about that one phone call that I got was that it showed me that my leader saw me, knew me, and cared enough to know if I was okay, even though it didn't necessarily affect me.
Mm-hmm.
But there was an effect that would happen. You come up to your job one day and all of a sudden you hear that your job is in the news because there was a murder suicide on the job.
Right.
That's going to mess with the psyche.
Mm-hmm.
And as a leader, you have a responsibility to create hope, to define reality, create hope and encouragement, and to move people forward.
That's true.
So that's my example. That's someone that an experience that I can think of.
I was just thinking about when I was talking to you about it earlier today, I thought of the principal I worked with, but as I was listening to you, I was just thinking about my girlfriend, my friend Merlene. She's a principal of an alternative school. And she is someone that when I think of somebody who is a leader like that, her school she is someone who has led a school. It's an alternative school, and that she's had so much crisis and traumatic events that has happened in her school, between teachers passing away, students passing away. I mean, like back to back in her building. She's always concerned about her students first, her teachers, always there. She goes to funerals. She has breakfasts for her staff every year. She has picnics. She does all these things. She drives kids home. She's very hands-on with her staff, to the point sometimes where I'm just like, she's very involved. It's a community. It's pretty much a community school. And so she's somebody who's very involved with her staff, to the point now where it's actually it's had a negative impact on her health. But she's somebody that I was thinking about as you were talking just now about, someone who's put people first when it comes to her staff. And as a leader, she's always thinking about her people and making sure that her school and her team is run, efficiently.
Yeah. In times like this, it's going to take each one of us being more and doing more. It's going to take us. It's going to take us really diving deep into, okay, where am I in this crisis?
Yeah.
Where am I in it? And being honest about that.
Yeah.
If you are experiencing fear, being honest about that and exploring, okay, why am I afraid? What is it that I am afraid of? What can I control? What can't I control? And what am I going to do to move forward?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a mom. And last night was hard. My 10-year-old, she's the extrovert in our house. She loves people. And she's been, we've kind of been going, she's been going, having a little bit of cabin fever because she's so used to, she's got friends that live around, our neighborhood. She's used to going and playing outside and everybody's kind of locked up in their home. And so last night she was like, well, Mom, can we go and visit our cousin? I was like, well, baby, right now we can't. And here's why. And she began to weep and say, it's not fair.
Mm-hmm.
It's not fair. And she cried and she cried and she cried. Now the mom leader in me wanted to explain away everything so that she could understand.
Mm-hmm.
the best gift that I could have given her was to allow her to feel everything that she was experiencing so that she could, in her 10-year-old wisdom, find her own resolve. Being someone who has resolve to say, you know what, this is bad now. I don't like it. This is where I am right now. But tomorrow is a new day.
Yeah.
And who am I going to show up as tomorrow? Who do I want to show up as? But we can't do that unless we are aware of where we are right now.
Right.
Where we are in the present, in your present, wherever you are right now. Thoughts? Where are you in the crisis? In this crisis?
That's good.
Kiana.
I'm processing that. That's been something I've been over the past weekend really thinking about and really praying around, because I've overburdened myself with things to do, with busyness. That's just kind of usual. I'm sure I'm not the only one, but in this time, because I am a little sick as well, so it's kind of like I know even before this, when I tend to get sick in a certain way, I know that that's God's way of sitting me down, and that's kind of where he's speaking to me in certain areas. But since this has been a longer sickness, and with the stay in type of a thing, it's like looking at everything that's on my plate and things, and just really reflecting on what I have and what I need to do with these things, and how I'm planning to come out of it, where I'm not walking in the same patterns as I have been before the stay in, meaning just always saying yes, or not taking that time for myself to really see what is it that, where am I at in this season outside of, the virus or the stay in, but who am I right now in this journey? And so I know that was kind of like a long explanation to get to this point, but but it just makes me, it's really just honing in on and just making things so apparent right now as to how important it is for me to do that right now, since I am not, I do work at a high school, so of course I'm not on campus. So I'm not going to work right now. So it's like I really don't have a choice. Well, I'm really choosing to also do this for myself as well. So again, I am processing really where am I at in this space of being at home, and how I want to show up while I'm at home, and planning to when we do come out of this, because I definitely don't want to continue in the same patterns that I have been before, because then it's just this cycle that keeps me in a place of frustration, and not moving forward in the things that I know I really need to. So anyway, so again, I'm really processing that now. So I don't really have a full answer, except for really just sitting in this space, being honest with myself, and my feelings, and what's on my plate, and not just keeping them because I want, because of other people being involved.
Right. One of the things that I'm hearing you say is you're going to stay in the question.
Yeah.
Stay in the question. Stay in the question of, okay, where am I?
Yes.
Where am I now?
Yeah.
Understanding that, and thank you for that. I'm sorry for cutting you off. Understanding that this is a reset.
Yeah.
This is a reset. Things are going to be very different for many, many people, maybe even some of us right now, going in Like, it's not going to go back to business as usual.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to go back to business as usual. Are we going to go back to business as usual? Are we going to take this time to, as we're experiencing this crisis, and it doesn't have to be the coronavirus.
Right.
Mm.
Exactly.
It doesn't have to be the coronavirus, just happens to be the condition and circumstance that nature, biology, science, chemistry, all those things, it just happens to be what's happening now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's affecting everybody, but it doesn't have to be that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to encourage you, I'm going to encourage all of us to stay in that question. Where are we in this sphere? Anyone else?
I mean, I'll be honest, for me, I'm at peace. That you're asking, where am I right now? I'm at peace. I believe everything happens for a reason. And my journey, the coronavirus, this may sound a little absurd, but the virus is probably the least of the concerns I've had over the past 2 years. Mm-hmm. And so with my story, which I won't go into right now, the journey that we have gone through over the past couple of years has brought me to a point of peace. And so I think that's where I'm at in this. And I think that we will take from this situation, we will learn from it, and it will help us to handle the next situation. I take every opportunity as a learning opportunity and as an opportunity to build my faith. And so what I've gone through over the past couple of years has built my faith to this, because I used to be a person filled with anxiety, and every once in a while I still get that way. But I'm very peaceful right now, because I'm at that point where I know whatever God has for me is going to be. And so I'm trusting in that. So where I'm at in this situation, I would say at peace. And I hope that I'm doing things that will allow other people to feel that peace. And I'm not here to say I'm just like running around with, happy and everything's great. Every once in a while I do get those nerves, but I'm at peace. I'm at peace, and knowing I want to use that, what God has got me and my family through, to bring that peace to someone else in this crisis. So that's what I want to do with this situation.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that. Sharice?
I guess like Cassandra, I mean, you know my story and what my journey has been for the last 5 years or so. It's been kind of epic. Like the coronavirus is like, at this point, I've been on a journey for a little while. So I'm in the place of giving right now. That's kind of where it has me. That I kind of started off the year with this go-giving attitude, that I was going to give beyond myself and have an attitude of serving and being and doing for others. Who knew that, Corona was on the way? Yeah. It hasn't changed my attitude of what I've decided I was going to do. It was about, relaunching myself into 2020 and doing for others and serving and just, relaunching my business and doing what God has called me to do. So that has not changed my resolve at all. It's just something else, another obstacle that I just have to get through.
Good.
I mean,
so good.
It's what it is, So I mean, the thing is that, and God has been using me that way. I mean, and some days I have faith the size of a mustard seed. Some days I have faith like I'm David and, in that field going up against Goliath. Some days I'm like Joshua walking around that gone city. Other days I just pull on all the things that he's done for me, and I'm just like, look here, devil, back it up. It all depends on the day. But, it's not easy. We know that. Like John said today, it's a crisis. And we can either let fear dominate our lives, or we can feed our faith. And I choose to feed my faith. And when I choose not to engage in conversations that's going to destroy that, I choose to be in my word. I choose to surround myself with people who are going to feed that. And for anyone who calls me who needs some support, you could cry a little bit. I pray with you, send you on your way. You know what I'm saying? but that's where I am right now.
Yeah.
And for me, I just feel like I don't have the luxury, because I have a lot of people that are first responders in my family.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have the luxury to focus on the negative. Because one of those people is my mom, another one of those people is my brother, another one is my aunt. So I don't have the luxury to focus on the outer stuff, because I can't do it. I have to focus up and just understand my circumstances. I don't have any control over that. So I have to think about what I know is true and just be in a place of the thing, like John said today, understanding that's a crisis. I can't control it, and just be in a place of stillness and just have an attitude of gratitude every day. That's just what I got to do. That's where I am.
I love what you shared. Each one of you has shared basically choice. I'm choosing. I'm choosing. I'm choosing to identify, okay, you know what? Where am I? I'm choosing in my awareness of where I am. This is the path that I'm going to take moving forward. If that path is peace, if that path is being a warrior for other people, if wherever that path is leading you, it all involves choice. In either as leaders, and we define leadership as influence, nothing more, nothing less. It's not what's outside of us, it's what's inside of us. So if we are influencing other people, we have the choice to make on what that influence will look like, and what it'll be. What will that choice be?
Mm-hmm.
So we are 5 minutes over, and I want to respect your time. Thank you for allowing us that extra 5 minutes. I hope that this was valuable to you. John will be live again tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. here on the West Coast and 12 p.m. on the East Coast. If you get an opportunity, watch it. What I found today on the Facebook feed, it was a little bit more difficult because there was a lot of buffering. I think we had 13,000 people on there live today.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
There was a lot of people on there. But if you go to johnmaxwellacademy.com, the stream was perfect. There was no buffering or anything. So, and today's live was it's there now. So if you do want to get a chance to watch that and provide your feedback. Yes.
It's also, I'm sorry, Des. It's also on his YouTube channel as well. He posted on his YouTube channel. So if you want to go watch it on the YouTube, you can do that as well.
Yeah. And Sharice and I will be live again tomorrow night at 5:00 Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. So if you guys want to jump in and have discussion about tomorrow night, you're more than welcome. Share it with people. There are people that are scared, people that want to know, okay, how do I lead effectively during this time? This time is here, and I want to, this is my plug, and this, I'm going to continue to say it. I want to be a person. I'm a person of value, and I get to do things of value and bring value to other people.
Yes.
Very good.
And people need hope. And as a believer, if this is what God has put inside of me, to help bring people hope and to help make them better. So that is my purpose, and I'm going to run with everything that I've got in me. So thank you for the opportunity. Sharice, thank you for raising your hand and saying, yeah, let's do this. And ladies, for taking the time to jump live. Hope to see you tomorrow night.
It's great.
Thank you.
All right.
Good night.
Tomorrow. Take care.
Good night.
Okay. Hang on 1 second. What happened here? I got it.